Here we go. Per usual, welcome back to Potty Plant Entertainment, everyone. Namaste. My name is Chris, and in case you don't know, I review movies and I rank them on a scale of 0 to 100 in increments of 5. Today, we are talking about my most anticipated movie of all time. I was way more excited for this than I even was for The Force Awakens. Because I know maybe an unpopular opinion, I get it. Most people like Star Wars. But Indiana Jones, for me, I've said it on this channel many times before. This was the franchise that made me fall in love with filmmaking. Raiders of the Lost Ark absolutely changed my life. Now, I've reviewed Raiders of the Lost Ark. I've reviewed Temple of Doom. I have not reviewed Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull yet, but those reviews will be coming. But I want to go ahead and get my thoughts out for Dial of Destiny because I have a lot. So, but I got this cool popcorn tin in this cool cup. Hello? This is an awesome cup. And I got this metal poster here behind me. I actually ordered that before I even saw the movie, just hoping that I would like it. And thank God I do like this movie. I'll say this. It's not as good as I wanted it to be. It's not as good as I deserved it to be. As a long-time, diehard, continuously outspoken supporter of this franchise, I deserved a better movie than what I got. But I'm glad I got it. I'm glad that this movie exists. And I'm glad that we didn't end it on a more sour note with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I mean, obviously, it would have been, people would have been more satisfied they ended it with Last Crusade. But my thing is that I feel like if they really did, just leave it alone at Last Crusade, everybody would be clamoring for Indiana Jones 4. So I don't really... everybody's always like, I keep seeing all these comments even before this movie came out. It's like, the series ended in Last Crusade. It's like, but you know full well, if it did, you would be clamoring for Indiana Jones 4. All right. So I'm glad it didn't end at Last Crusade because we got this movie and I really enjoyed this movie. Now, this movie is like the most over budgeted thing of all time. And it's making good money. Like, it's made, as of my recording date, it's made over 150 mil worldwide at the box office. But that's good for a movie with a smaller budget. This is, one of the most expensive movies ever made, and I don't understand why. This movie didn't need to be made with all the money that it was. This movie should have been made with a smaller budget. It really should have. And I think that the ending of the movie would have been better if it had. Which reminds me, this is a full spoiler review. I'm not going to do a non-spoiler review for this movie because I want to do one review with my complete in-depth thoughts. Because I love this franchise so much, I'm going to give it the best review I possibly can. And to do that, I don't want to break it up into a spoiler and a non-spoiler section. So I'm just going to talk about the movie. So that's your warning. Full spoilers ahead. Movie's been out for a little under a week now. So go see it. It's good. Go support the movie. It's not going to make its money back even if you do. But still, go support the movie. It's good. I like it. But I wish it was better. I'll say that. But let's get right into it. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Stars Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Ethan Isidore, Mads Mikkelsen, Boyd Holbrook, Toby Jones, John Rhys-Davies, Antonio Banderas, and Shawnette Renee Wilson, and it was directed by James Mangold. This is the first movie in the Indiana Jones franchise not directed by Spielberg. However, Spielberg and Lucas were both producers on this, and Kathleen Kennedy was too. But Frank Marshall came back, which is awesome. David Koepp came back to help write the screenplay. He wrote Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Either way, let's get into my pros and cons. For one, the opening. The opening sequence of this movie is so great. There were so many moments throughout this movie where I just couldn't help but smile, but most of those moments came from this opening sequence. It is fantastic. I love every minute of this opening sequence. I've gone to see the movie twice now, and both times this opening sequence is just riveting. It is classic indie action. It is perfect. It's amazing. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's amazing. I know a lot of people are talking about the younger CGI indie, and in several years from now, that whole opening sequence probably won't hold up anymore. But my only real issue with this opening sequence was like they get this distance shot of Indy running on a train, and he looks like he's like rubber band. He looks like he's like a rubber band human. It's weird. But other than that, this opening sequence is amazing. It is just so great. The music is like it's a callback to the original films. It's perfect. I love it. And he gets a cool fight on top of a moving train. You know full well if he was on top of a moving train, his hat would just fly right off his head. But, you know, suspension of disbelief, right? This whole franchise has really asked a lot of suspension of disbelief from you. So, you know, little things like that they can get away with. But I do think the CGI on Harrison Ford was fantastic. It is the best de-aging I've seen since The Irishman. I don't think it's quite as well done as The Irishman. I've never seen it done as well since The Irishman, but it's great. The cinematography in this movie is fantastic. The sound effects in this movie are fantastic. I always loved the whip cracking sound effect in Indiana Jones. It's great. I guess I forgot to talk about the plot. I should probably say that, but you kind of already know the plot, right? It opens with like a flashback sequence, and then Indiana Jones teams up with his goddaughter to go get this dial of destiny, this dial built by Archimedes that, you know, former Nazis want to use for reasons, right? Which, as this is a spoiler warning, you know, it's to go back and win World War II. Yeah, I meant to say that before, my bad. Anyways, the lighting in this movie is really good too. This movie looks so much better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull uses a lot of practical effects, but because of like I guess like the filter on it or whatever, things look fake even when they were real. This movie does have that problem a little bit too, but not near as bad. I also found Helena not annoying. She's flawed and she lacks respect for history. So she's, you know, human. She's got her own problems, but she's not annoying. This movie is not woke like a lot of people were suggesting pre-release. Now, like I'm not a fan of like woke messages being crammed down my throat any more than that X guy. I just want to be entertained and escape from the real world. I get that, man. I find it just as annoying as everyone else. I get it. But this movie is not like that, and everybody was just assuming it was before it came out, and of course it wasn't. You know, it's just this movie. I've never seen a movie get so much hate pre-release than this one. And the movie came out and ended up being good. Like, if the movie was great, I think people would have learned their lesson. But because the movie's not great, people are not going to learn their lesson. And this is just going to happen to another movie. And unfortunately, you know, them releasing it at Cannes really took the wind out of this movie's sails. But it's still good, and you should support it. But Helena is a great sidekick. I like her. She's not my favorite. My favorite's always going to be Short Round, but she's not annoying. She's a good character. She's a good, flawed human character. I liked her. Mads Mikkelsen is really good in this. John Rhys-Davies, and the limited screen time he has, he's really good in this. I've met him before, by the way. I've mentioned it. Super sweet guy. It also has classic indie action all throughout this movie. There's car chases. There's the bit where the guy gets hit by the trailer with all the bamboo. Classic indie gag. It reminds me of Last Crusade when he stuck the staff in the dude's wheel and it sent him flying up in the air. Which I actually saw there's an episode of Mythbusters. I watched this when I was a kid where they tested that. That's not how that works. But again, suspension of disbelief, right? I also love how this movie has action on land, air, and sea. They did all three in this movie. That is good writing. Good on them. I love that. They go diving. They fight in a plane. And they have car chases on the ground. They have gunfight. The one gunfight. It's all great. I also love how they explore ancient ruins. This really does feel like an Indiana Jones movie. They really managed to capture that feel. And I loved it so much. The MacGuffin is great. Every Indiana Jones movie has its own MacGuffin, and in this one's different because this one was actually made by well, I guess I was about to say this is the one that's actually made by humans, but I guess the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail were made by humans too. But this one, they break it in two. Now, that's not a new inventive idea. There's plenty of movies where the MacGuffin is broken into two parts and you got to bring them together. I think Hellboy, the Hellboy reboot that came out a few years ago, they did that with like the dismembered body parts. You got to put them back together. Anyway, so it's not a classic idea, but it's new for this franchise and it really worked here. I think the Archimedes doll was a great MacGuffin. The music in this movie is really, really good. John Williams came back for this movie, did a fantastic job. I will say it is probably my least favorite score of the whole franchise. I've listened to the whole thing now. I would say it's definitely the weakest of the 5 movies. But still, it's really good. It's just I don't think it's nearly as good as it is for the other movies. The dialogue is really good. You should have stayed in New York. You should have stayed out of Poland. There's really good dialogue in this movie. And some people were even making fun of the dialogue before this movie came out, like stuff from the trailers. And like, no, the dialogue in this movie is really good. The jokes in it are really good. I mean, obviously, it's not as funny as Last Crusade was. Last Crusade is easily the most funny movie in this franchise, but it's got some good jokes in it. I also like how Mads Mikkelsen character wants to kill Hitler and not help him. That is different. It's something I wasn't expecting. When he said he was going to go back in time to bomb Hitler and then take over himself, I was okay. I wasn't expecting this to go there, but they did. That was good writing. There's a lot of good writing in this movie. There's some bad writing, but there's a lot of good writing in it. Indy has a great character arc. He learns to accept his place in history rather than literally live in the past. And I think it's good that he doesn't stay there. Because I feel like if he had stayed there, it would have been like the movie is saying, yeah, he doesn't have a place in 1969 because he's all depressed because Mutt died in Vietnam and Marion left him, and he wants to stay in the past because he feels like there's nothing for him in 1969. But I feel like him staying in the past would have proved that point. And so I'm glad he didn't. Although I watched C3 Films review for this, and he made an interesting point how, like, they talk about how Teddy, the little sidekick character to Helena, which, by the way, isn't near as interesting of a character as Short Round, but, you know, he's kind of there. He's not annoying. He's serviceable. That's just my opinion on him. But he takes his watch, and he's like, give that back. That was my father's watch. And then he finds the watch on Archimedes' body. And I'm like, and he thought that was originally supposed to be Indy's dead body. It's an interesting theory. But if that was originally the case and they went back and they refilmed it and changed it, I'm glad they did. Because I just think that would have sent the wrong message if he had stayed back in, what was it, 214 BC or 249 BC? Helena has a great arc too. She starts to have more respect for history. I also love the Air Force One moment. The give me the parachute. That I don't know if that was really a reference to Air Force One, but I feel like it was, and I appreciated that. I also love how the big guy was left to drown. Teddy cuffed him to the grate underwater, and he's screaming. And when I watched this movie the first time, I was like, oh, they really did that. That's brutal. Okay. Because I thought Indy was going to fight him later in the movie, but he drowned to death. I was like, oh, that's kind of brutal. I respect that very much. I also love how they show Mads Mikkelsen and Boyd Holbrook's bodies. Their burn up bodies after the plane crashes. Like, they actually showed their body. I was like, okay, Disney, I respect that. That was cool. I also love how the nostalgia for this movie. They do some references to the past movies, but they don't overdo it. They're very, very nicely placed. It's not like in Doctor Sleep when the blood comes flooding out of the Overlook Hotel's elevators and all this stuff when they just completely overdid all the nostalgia. No, they did it perfectly. It was perfect. They referenced the past movies. They did it perfectly. I have no complaints about the nostalgia. This movie is conventional, but it also takes a risk. And they took some big risks with this movie. Like, I respect James Mangold immensely for taking some very big risks with this movie. And he did some risks that for everyone are not going to pay off. Like time travel, for everyone that's not going to pay off. For me, it paid off. I liked it. I think it was very poetic that Indiana Jones gets to actually experience history. You know, he's loved history. It's his passion. It always has been. And for him to actually get to see history was very poetic, and I like that very much. For me, that risk really paid off. For everyone, it doesn't, and it hasn't. But for me, I thought it was amazing. I loved it. When I first heard, like maybe a year or two ago, that they could possibly be doing time travel in this movie, I hated it. But I marinated on it. I was like, that makes sense. Especially because, like, in some of the Indiana Jones, like, books and stuff, he's battling, like, undead armies and stuff. So, you know, these movies have gotten more ridiculous. You know, Indiana Jones has gotten pretty ridiculous before. So, I can get behind this. The production design in this movie is also beautiful. The 1960s setup, it's great. Indiana Jones has always done a fantastic job with production design. This movie is no different. The production design is beautiful. Let's see. Here's before I get into my cons, I do want to say another thing in this movie's defense that I don't understand. Some people are one of the complaints for this movie is that Toby Jones, his character, is a character that we're not already familiar with. And a lot of people think he should have been a character we were already familiar with. But this whole franchise has always introduced people that, like, they imply Indy already knew. And now they're on the adventure with them. So I don't really understand that complaint. Why is this any different? It's dumb. But I really like this movie. But I have some complaints. And it's mostly with the ending. So let's get into the ending. The ending is a bit anticlimactic. And the reason for it is because Indy, the whole climax, doesn't do anything. Nothing. He parachutes out of a plane, and that's it. That's all he does. That's his entire involvement with the ending of this movie. He doesn't do one single thing. I don't know who wrote that and thought that would be okay, but you are a complete moron if you think that having an ending where Indiana Jones does nothing is a good idea. Whoever wrote that, I freaking hate you. That's terrible, terrible writing. Now, some people may make the argument, well, at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, he spends the whole ending tied up, just like he does in this one. Okay, but the action in Raiders had already climaxed. Like, we had already gotten the biggest action scenes, now we just needed to wrap it up. This movie, he doesn't even have a fight scene. In every Indiana Jones movie, he has, like, this big fist fight scene, and for whatever reason, they felt like it was okay to exclude that in this one. It's not okay. It's not okay. Okay, normally, in every movie, he had the fist fight scene, and then the movie continued into the falling climax. Even if you wanted to have him, but it was always not with the main villain. It was always with, like, a sidekick villain. Even if you wanted to save that fight scene for the very end and have him fight the main villain, that would have been fine. It didn't even have to be long. It only had to be, like, a minute long, and Indiana Jones could have only gotten a couple licks and gotten his butt kicked. Like, it would have been fine. Just have it there. Have him do something. But he doesn't do anything. And it's terrible writing. Terrible writing. This movie was so well written right up until this point, and they completely dropped the ball. I don't know what happened here. Like, it's like they were writing gold, and then they just said, nope, let's put some poop. I don't understand. I don't understand how they could have screwed this up so hard. And then Helena knocking out Indiana Jones was terrible. Horrible. That is probably my least favorite moment in this entire franchise, is Helena knocking out Indy. I don't necessarily mind her making that decision for him, but dude, she knocks him out. It doesn't even make any sense. He's been getting punched in the face this whole movie. And then once she knocks him out, he's asleep for like days. Why? All she did was punch him. There's also no horror elements in this movie. I mean, it shows like the burnt up bodies, but that's about it. There's no horror elements in this, like there is in all. Like even Kingdom of Crystal Skull has the ant thing. They frame Indy for murder, and then the movie never revisits it. Did you notice that? That's a plot point that they just forgot about. I mean, I'm assuming that the CIA agents being murdered by Mickelson as goons on the plane is probably what cleared his name, but you could at least mention it. It's not as well paced as the other films in the series. I mean, every other movie, including Kingdom of Crystal Skull, is like very on the move. This one takes its time a little bit more. I didn't mind it, but it's just not quite as well paced. And a lot of people are saying this movie needed to be trimmed down. And every time I watched it, I'm like, where would they cut? Like, maybe that's just me because I have an extreme amount of patience for movies, but I don't really understand where they would have cut, what they would have cut. Help me out here in the comments. There's also a plot hole I noticed, and it's like Wonder Woman 1984 when they take the jet across the world and never stop to refuel. They take the boat after they escape Mickelson and Antonio Banderas has been murdered. They take it like halfway across the world, and they never once stop to refuel. There's also no mountain fade in, which was disappointing. They clearly left that out on purpose. Like, I think they knew, but they just didn't really have anywhere to put it in. And I think that's because even though Paramount still has like some rights to the franchise, they didn't really have any direct involvement in the movie. So that's why they didn't put it in. But I feel like they could have worked out something with Paramount to maybe put it in. But again, I understand Paramount didn't have a direct involvement with this, so it makes sense why they did it. It just would have been cool if they had figured out a way to work it in, but not a big complaint. Another thing, and this isn't a big complaint either, this is something I noticed, and I thought about before I saw the movie, when you see Indiana Jones sitting in the chair and he doesn't have a shirt on, I was hoping that when he sat up, you would see whipping scars across his back from Temple of Doom. That's not there. Unfortunately, they didn't think of that little detail. It's something that I thought of and I thought would have been cool, but whatever. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just something I feel like was kind of missing that would have made me smile. Let's see. And the Mickelson... Oh, okay, yeah. This was the moment in the prologue that bothered me. Mads Mikkelsen getting hit by the giant steel beam and somehow doesn't die. Like, anybody would have, like, died from that, but he doesn't. I didn't even notice if did he have a scar or anything from it? Because I didn't notice. Also, so Indy and Helena, they go to look for Archimedes' body, and when they're going through the tunnel, they're covered in bugs. Unfortunately, the bugs are CGI and not real like they were in Temple of Doom, but the CGI on them was very convincing, so they're there. But then Indy's like, get them off me. Are they off me? And I was sitting there thinking, when has he ever been bothered by bugs? Like, in Temple of Doom, like, the bugs in Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's bugs all over him, and he's never seemed to be remotely bothered by it. The only thing I can think is that either, one, it's poor writing, or two, he's older, he hasn't been on an adventure in a long time, and that maybe he's just not really... He's not with that anymore. That's just not really who he is anymore. Like, now that sort of thing kind of bothers him. And I could understand that. That would make sense, but more likely than not, it was just poor writing. This is another thing. This is not necessarily a complaint. It's just a small little thing that I noticed where the I've been looking for this all my life line that's in every freaking trailer for this movie isn't even in the movie. Okay, it's in every trailer. You'd think it'd be in the movie, but no. Okay. I also, Indy doesn't really kill more than, like, one guy after the opening sequence. Like, Indiana Jones and his franchise has killed, like, a lot of dudes. And in this one, after the prologue, he kills, like, one person. He shoots and kills, like, one guy. And then that's it. I mean, it's better than in Kingdom of Crystal Skull, how he never even fires his gun. But, come on, man. It's Indiana Jones. He kills bad guys. Show him killing... They're Nazis. Let's see him killing some Nazis here. Come on. it lacks the same amount of violence as the original trilogy. I get that, like, it's Disney, it's more sanitized, but honestly, Disney, if you're more sanitized, you're not the right company to own this franchise. This IP is not good for you. It needs to go to another company if you're afraid to get violent and have horror elements and blood in your movie. If you're afraid of that, you're not the right business to own this IP. That's it. Okay, so I have one more thing I want to go over. I rewrote the ending for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. You tell me what you think of my ending. Okay, so they go through the portal, right? They're going back to the past. And now they're there. Indy's tied up. Helena's in the plane. Teddy's flying behind them, right? Okay, so they're getting shot at by the Romans, right? Indy removes his binds during the panic and has a brief fight with Kleber, who is the dude with the mustache, right? But he only gets in a couple of punches during the fight, and Kleber punches his gunshot wound several times as a callback to when that happened to him in the truck in Raiders. He then manages to get Kleber's gun and shoots him in the head, and his body falls out the open bay door. They could have done something like Air Force One, right? Helena shoots Mad Mikkelsen the same way she does in the movie, and then the two parachute out of the plane. Then on the ground, Indy meets Archimedes, and he says he wants to stay. Helena explains to him why he's still valuable in 1969, and they get on the plane with Teddy and fly through the portal, barely making it before it closes. How much better is that? Give me the writing Oscar, because I just fixed this movie. Yeah. All right. I know this review was a little bit disorganized compared to my other ones, but it's just that the movie just came out, and I was trying my best to get my thoughts straight with it. I have some mixed opinions about it, which is why, like I said, I apologize. Normally, I try to keep my reviews as structured as I can. This one was a little bit more scattered, but I feel like I still got all my general thoughts out about the film. So, thank you for watching, and my final rating for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is an 80 out of 100. I really wanted it to be like at least a 90, because this whole movie, I was thinking, like, I don't understand. I'm sitting there. Come on. This is really old water. I'm sitting there. I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, this is great. This is amazing. This is everything I could have dreamed of it being. Holy crap. Why is this movie getting so much hate? This is amazing. I mean, it's not as good as the originals, but still, this is amazing. This is everything I could have wanted, almost. And then the ending happened. I'm just like, they were this close to nailing it. But I do still want to say I really like this movie. I mean, I wouldn't have bought all this stuff if I didn't really like this movie. I don't love it. I wish I loved it. I love everything about it right up until the end. They were so close, but I still really like this movie. I'm glad that this movie exists. I'm going to go see it again. I'm probably going to go see it like at least 2 more times. Because I like this movie and I want to support it. Is the production for it way too big? Yeah. This movie was never going to make that money back. I don't know what they were thinking. Like, hopefully they learn their lesson, make better movies with smaller budgets. I think that's the lesson to be learned with this film. And it might be making better money if they didn't take it to Cannes, because that just wasn't the right audience to show this movie. But you could tell they had a lot of confidence in this. Like, they love this movie. I saw the CEO of Disney said that he watched it 5 times because he liked it so much. Like, and I get why. It's just the ending. The ending is what almost ruins it. The ending is just not good. I mean, it's got some good stuff about it, but overall, it's not good. They were this close with it, man. So I get why they had so much confidence in it, but they needed to look at this ending and be like, all right, hold up. We need to do some reshoots here. This is not right. And Cannes is just full. That's not the right audience for this type of movie. Come on, man. When it premiered in LA, it started to get a little bit more buzz. But they shouldn't have taken it to Cannes. But they did. And the movie is bombing mostly due to that. But It is what it is. I'm glad this movie exists. I'm gonna buy it on Blu-ray as soon as it comes out. I really like it. I really do. I like it. I like it quite a bit better than I like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Although there are things that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did better than this movie, but overall, this was a better film. Quite a bit better, I feel like. I really do like it. It's just it's not the movie. It's not as good as it could have been. And that's why it's so frustrating. It's because I could see how close they were to making a great movie, and they just didn't stick the landing. You know who else didn't stick the landing? Mads Mikkelsen. Sorry. I'll be back soon with Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. If you watched this whole half-hour review, thank you. This is one of my longest reviews ever. If not my longest one. I don't know if my review for The Room is longer than this one or not, but again, I know this one was a little bit disorganized. I apologize. I just had so many thoughts and I just blurted them out on paper, and that's kind of the way it came out. Yeah, but I like this movie and I'm glad we got it. So if you haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny yet, I recommend it. Go see it. I'm going to go see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 on Monday. Very excited for that. I've heard very good buzz about that one, so very hyped for that. But I'm glad that I finally got Indiana Jones 5. You know, when I was a kid, Indiana Jones 5 was just a dream, and now it's here. And I just want to give childhood 11-year-old Chris a big hug and say, Indiana Jones 5 is good. So just be patient, you'll get it. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Player Entertainment for more. Hit the like button. Leave me reviews, suggestions down in the comments down below. Follow me on nothing. I was about to say follow me on Instagram, but I'm still on my Instagram break. So thank you for watching. Much love, and I wish you all fortune and glory.